Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for joining us for tonight's edition of HR Mentorship Learning Series. If you have been following in the last few weeks, you will have noticed that we are doing a focus on industries and sectors, looking at the peculiarities of HR in different domains. Very recently, we looked at a topic, HR in FinTech, and we'll be doing more in the next few weeks as we wrap up the year. Today, we'll be focusing on a topic, a sector that is typically regarded as very juicy, and we'll call it the peculiarities of HR practice in the oil and gas sector. Our facilitator today is Eniton Awojobi, and I would like to read his very robust but brief profile. Eniton Jejelola Awojobi is an Obafemi Awolowo University Ile-Ife graduate. He's also an alumni of the University of Ibadan. He's a trained clinical psychologist with expertise in corporate mental health programs, needs assessment, design development, delivery, implementation, and evaluation. He's very resourceful, passionate, and creative human resource professional with a 360-degree view across the function. Eniton has worked as a learning and development and HR professional in 8 different organizations across 5 sectors of the economy, including non-governmental organizations, tertiary education, telecommunications, human resource consulting, and energy sector. And in that energy sector, he has worked, to the best of my knowledge, in 3 different major energy sectors, and is currently with a major oil and gas player even right now. Recently, proud to his current role, he was the HR director for a premium university where he hired and managed talent from diverse regions and continents. He has over 12 years experience across HR functions in the oil and gas sector. Note, not cumulative experience now. In oil and gas alone, he has 12 years, very rich experience. Anytime, Awojobi has delivered several major HR projects across industries, both private and public. He was also intensively involved in mental health debriefing across multiple local and global organizations in the fight against COVID-19 and associated mental health issues. He designed and delivered a bespoke post-traumatic stress disorder first aid therapist and trained the training for select employees of an organization directly impacted by the reprisal xenophobic attacks in South African business interests in Nigeria. Ladies and gentlemen, Eniton is an associate of professional associations such as the Chartered Institute of Personnel Management, CIPM, Chartered Institute of Personnel Development, CIPD, World at Work, Nigerian Institute of Training and Development, NITD, Nigerian Psychological Association, NPA, Nigerian Association of Clinical Psychologists, and Employee Assistant Practitioners Association of Nigeria. Eniton is also a serial entrepreneur with interests in diverse sectors of the economy, including education, farming, agri-commodities, and real estate. This one is not in his profile, but I will say it without his permission. He is also a politician, and he has contested for the office of senator in the Federal Republic. Not primary, in the real election. So that's why I still call him my senator, and I still call him incoming. Ladies and gentlemen, it's our privilege, our pleasure. Tonight, at last, Eniton Awojobi. I was tempted to say senator. You have the floor, sir.
Thank you very much, Dr. Adeosun. Let me say that I've said since I accepted this invite, I said I was going to make a public apology to my very dear friend, long-standing professional and personal friend, Dr. Oluyemi Adeosun, for having not been able to connect on this platform for a while. I mean, it's been a long time. He's been trying to get me to come here. And I think I count it as a privilege, a rare privilege indeed, to be here. And I promise that very soon I will come back. Thank you very much if I'm invited. Thank you very much, Oluyemi Adeosun. And good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm happy. Dr. Oluyemi Adeosun, please confirm I'm audible, very audible.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay, great, great. So I'll go right into it. So what this sector conversation, I'm sure is not a conversation that is going to be lost, you know, in anyone among us here, because of course we're going to be talking about HR, but the peculiarity of the practice in the different sectors of the Nigerian economy. I'm excited to be talking about the peculiarities of the HR practice in the oil and gas sector, and let's get straight onto it. Okay. Okay, so this is our outline quickly. Introduction, we're going to be doing an introduction. We're talking about the strategic importance of the oil and gas sector. We'll talk about the multi-sectoral relevance of the HR function, which I believe we all know. Just these are reminders. And of course, we talk about the real thing, upstream oil and gas and the HR function. And then we'll talk about how to get a job in the oil and gas sector. And of course, we also, for the consultants among us, we also talk about how to get consulting jobs in the oil and gas sector of the economy. And then we'll conclude. So my introduction, I speak a bit fast. So, but I'll try very well to maintain a pace that will be easy for all of us to grasp what I'm saying. So this is clear. Crude oil was first discovered in Nigeria by Shell in commercial quantity. You know, Oloibiri in the current day Bayelsa State on January 15, 1956. I must explain here that this date changed the story of Nigeria. Now, I will leave you to determine if it's changed it for good or for bad, but did change the story of Nigeria. And then, of course, there was the subsequent discovery of gas resources and the discovery of hydrocarbon, which is crude, and subsequent issuance of licenses to multiple commercial operators has brought about immense human capital development in the country. One very positive thing I must say that the sector has brought to bear or has brought to us as a people is that it has brought about a very, in my experience, very profound human capital development, because you would the history of the sector is that we had to bring a lot of human capital from abroad, and then since that time in the 60s up till now, we also have people also going all across the world to also gain knowledge, which of course they begin to come to Nigeria to use in the sector and indeed transfer into other sectors through consulting activities, and of course through people moving from one sector, from the oil and gas sector, to other sectors of the economy. I'm just coming from the tertiary education sector, where I went to also make an impact in that sector based on some of the things I've gathered in different sectors of the economy, especially from the oil and gas. So indeed, I must say that in terms of human capital development, the oil and gas sector has done tremendously well for the Nigerian economy. And then, of course, so this is one of the most regulated in industry in the country. And it has a lot of implications for us as HR practitioners, because then it begins to, it begins to speak of the kind of people you get to do things for you, the expertise that's required, the experience that is required, and so on and so forth. So we've got the Minister of Petroleum, so he's involved in the formulation, monitoring, and administration of government policy in the oil and gas sector. The minister is involved, almost on a regular basis in the running of oil and gas businesses. So a typical minister will know quite a number of the companies that operate in the sector, because there are approvers that will go through his desk. And of course, we have the Nigerian Upstream Regulatory Commission, we call them NUPRE, regulates all upstream petroleum operations, including technical, operational, and commercial activities. This is what more or less the one we used to call DPR, Department for Petroleum Resources. They are the ones that the minister issues license, but technically they're the ones that issue the license on a daily basis. And then you've got the midstream and downstream regulatory authority. They regulate all midstream and downstream petroleum operations, including technical operations and commercial. It's important as HR practitioners that we are familiar with the regulatory environment in the oil and gas sector, because, like I mentioned, you would have situations on a regular basis where your personnel, your employees would interface with all of these folks. And indeed, there will be, from a business partnering perspective, there will be issues that affect the business that will now relate to either of all of these regulators. And of course, we have NIMS, we have the NMPC Investment Management Services. NIMS is this may be going to be the investment vehicle of NMPC Limited, which transacts with IOCs and other operators using the instruments of joint venture. So they've got the joint venture business approach, and of course the petroleum sharing contract. And of course, there's also the one that is the name skips my mind now, that is 100% cost on the investor. So for instance, so by way of explanation, joint venture means that you share responsibilities, you share the business ownership with government, and the petroleum sharing contract is only owned by government 100%, and government carries the cost, which means from the operating cost, the crude oil, basically OPEX per barrel, that's the money we spend in running the business, is, or even OPEX or CAPEX, is from what you make from, lifting the oil. And then at the end of the day, there is royalty, there is profit share and all that between the government and the investor, as opposed to the joint venture where, basically you share liabilities and assets on a ratio basis. But the other one, which is 100% on the investor, is the investor invests his money. If he makes money, he will pay interest to government, you pay royalties, all sorts of returns to government, but he's not sharing profit to government. Technically, he's not doing that because he's carrying the cost 100%. So if there's a loss also, he bears the loss 100% in that regard. The industry has two very strong unions, and these unions indeed they are the biggest work in my view for HR practitioners. That's Pengasan and the NOPEN. Even for those of us who are not in the industry, you know about these two unions, particularly Pengasan. Now, what's the strategic importance of the so let me, before I move away from the introduction, all of these regulators and partners are critical to your success in your job as a human resource practitioner in the oil and gas sector. They're very critical. So you interact with them, your employees interact with them on a regular basis. And of course, another regulator I didn't talk about, who is a regulator, across sectors, is EFCC. Essentially we all deal with EFCC one way or the other. So strategic importance of the oil and gas sector. So we all know, I mean, we talk about this, for many of us, we only know that the oil and gas sector contributes so much to our economy, but we do not know in specific terms. Some people even think we don't get any value from it, but I must say that this sector contributes significantly to the nation's economic resources. It drives significant foreign investment. Investment in the oil and gas sector is in billions of dollars, and I'm sure most of us know this. It's usually a major investment whenever it comes, and the money is not easy to come by. Major attraction for highly skilled manpower with superior effect on mentorship and grooming. I think I mentioned this earlier. The oil and gas companies, I must say, in my 12 years, 12 plus years in the industry, I must say they do provide training, knowledge transfer, by all means, by training, classroom training, on-the-job training, local training, international training, virtual training, etc., etc. The significant knowledge transfer exchanges takes place within this sector. So basically, you have a lot of experts coming from different parts of the world, and then coming to transfer knowledge. And you also have a lot of job rotations. The big ones really do a lot of job rotations across divisions in the organization, in country and internationally. And that's a significant opportunity for our people to upskill in different areas. of the oil and gas operations, and indeed the support functions, including finance, including HR, HSC, etc., etc. The sector has a very huge training budget. Unfortunately, much of this goes abroad. So this sector, I must say, I've handled training in the sector, and I know, I was coming, when I joined the oil and gas sector, I was coming from the consulting, from telecoms consulting and tertiary education previously. And when I saw the training budgets in oil and gas, I was blown away. Employs a fraction of those within the active labor force, but pays compensation that contributes significantly to our well-being and stimulates vast economic act. I must say that people say that, how do I say now? When they talk about the oil and gas money, it's for real. But there's a balance. There's a delicate balance which I'm going to talk about later. But and I must say that having mixed with people from different operators, that's what we call ourselves, operators. I must say boldly that these folks are some of the people that invest heavily in different strategic areas of the economy, including real estate and farming, and so on and so forth. And some of them are even gone ahead to even establish their own oil and gas firm. So this is talking about the strategic importance of the oil and gas sector to the Nigerian economy. Also, multi-sectoral relevance of the HR function. All sectors require the services of human resources professionals. I think this is a privilege I have enjoyed as an individual, and I must say I congratulate every one of us on this platform who are in this profession, because what it means as an HR professional is that you can work anywhere, almost anywhere. Industries have peculiarities, but the fundamental approach of human resources is the same for all. So I must say again, I must admit that in terms of fundamental approach to the job, HR is HR anywhere and everywhere. Human resources practice is more intense in unionized environments. Before I came into the industry, I didn't have so much experience with the unions. But I must tell you that we've had trying times. We have had very difficult nights and days and months and weeks and years dealing with the unions. But I must say I'm happy for it. Yeah, unions are every HR practitioner's what nightmares we all should experience dealing with the unions. They are every HR practitioner's what nightmares where they really have the powers, basically to operate like the oil and gas industry. Pengasan and Nipeng are very powerful unions. Dealing with them, it's not the best of things you want to have, but again, it's an experience that is worth the while. So HR is relevant anywhere and everywhere across the economy. So we're going to go to the meat of this matter now, which is looking at the different functional areas in human resources practice and how, and then looking at their relevance in the human resources, in the different functions in the human resources practice, looking at how they function or how they work in the oil and gas sector. Pretty much it is the same. So I don't want to quote it as if it's it's something totally out of the regular that we do. It's not, but again, it has got some peculiarities, and I've tried to bring out some of these peculiarities, on this presentation. So first and foremost, I look at recruitment and staffing. Oil companies use a lot of specialist recruitment agencies, both global and local. So one of my first experience, or first, I wouldn't say it was a shocker, encounter with the sector was the fact that the skills required in the oil and gas sector are quite extremely specialized. And when I joined the sector, I found out that I thought it was going to be easy peasy to say, okay, you need a geologist, just go get a geologist for one of the service geological studies organizations or companies, consulting companies in the country. But it was not that easy. So we needed to use a lot of consulting firms from different parts of the world. So you find a situation whereby we interview candidates and they will not cut it. It was several candidates and none of them will cut it. And then We needed specialist organizations, some in Brazil, sometimes in Italy, in America, in the United Kingdom, to help us, and sometimes locally within Nigeria, to help us source for the right person for this role. Maybe it's an expatriate or even a Nigerian, you know. It was indeed an experience. I know that this is not also peculiar, as it were, to the oil and gas sector. I know that some people in financial services, even in fintech, have to use global outsource or global research agencies to get experts across fields. But I must say that this is a norm. I mean, it's a very regular practice in the oil and gas sector. There's also a lot of referrals, because when oil companies hire, they really want to be sure of the competence of the employee. So because it's usually oil companies, oil and gas operators in the country, except for a few that are very big, I mean, the Chevron, the Shell, and the Mobil, most of the time you find out that oil companies are, quite small sized in terms of people, particularly in terms of full-time staff. Then when they get people, they want to be sure that this employee they are hiring is fully competent. Again, in some areas, they don't even want somebody that's just a specialist. They want an all-rounder, as you say it, within the street. You find out that sometimes you need a production operations person who also understands petroleum engineering. They are technically two different areas, but you would not want somebody doing the job who doesn't understand the closest discipline to what he is doing on a daily basis. So basically, you have a situation whereby they use a lot of referrals, and that's why sometimes people ask the question: all these oil companies, where did they hire? Where did they get their staff from? I must tell you that they use a lot of referrals to get people into their firms or into their operating companies. Recruitment into oil companies is often highly competitive. Yes, often highly competitive. But I must tell you that I will tell you the story of how I got into the sector, and I will tell you that indeed you can get into the sector if that's your aspiration. Where the OPCO and the operating company has a head office outside the country, these HQs are often involved in major recruitment campaigns, thereby reducing all forms of nepotism. So what most people think is that is actually the bulk of employment into the oil and gas sector is driven by man knows man, nepotism or favoritism, as it were. It's indeed not exactly so, particularly for the big ones. When I say the big ones, even those who are doing 60, 70,000 barrels of oil per day, it's indeed a big deal to hire a single person. So for some of them, they have to get to their corporate head office in different parts of the world to sanction each hiring. And indeed, most of the time, they go through the process. These are tidy processes. They go through the processes or the process to ensure that this person they are bringing in actually meets the laid down standard or criteria. So I must also say that a lot of times the oil companies advertise, but most of us don't pay attention to this advert. So you see Total advertising, you see Shell advertising, you see Mobil advertising. I must say that 95% or 98% of the time, hiring, engagement, recruitment, selection are done through very open and transparent processes for the big ones. And I say big ones, anybody doing from even 10,000, 15,000 is a very serious-minded oil and gas company because of what goes into the operations. A reasonable number of upstream companies have the resources to adopt technology in their recruitment. So in my time in the oil and gas industry, I've seen a lot of, we've adopted a lot of tools in recruiting people, both by ourselves on our own as organizations or as an organization, or even via the consulting firms. Because a lot of times when you do recruitment, particularly with respect to those who have some relationship, the PSCs and the JVs, who have to report to I call them the landlord, the nappings, what used to be nappings and NIOMs now. You have to be process driven. You have to stick to very standardized processes, because someone is going to ask you questions at the end of that journey. You understand? Because again, if it's a JV, government is meant to pay part of the compensation your employer is part of the compensation. You know, if it is a PSC, it is everything is on the income from the operating entity. So you want to be able to, you know, particularly in this country, you want to be able to, you know, explain and prove beyond reasonable doubt that you have followed due process in getting the person. Okay, recruitment is a continuous exercise. I say a lot of the highly skilled employees are extremely mobile and there are attractive workers all over the globe. Saudi Aramco is heavy on attracting Nigerian workers. I must tell you, particularly folks around HSC. In my time in the industry, Saudi Aramco, which is the Saudi Arabia-owned state oil company, the biggest in the world, has snatched a lot of employees from us. And I must say that. So employees in the sector are very mobile. A lot of employees in the sector, you know, because they can afford it, they relocate their families, and after some time they want to join their family. These are people that are highly skilled. And again, so it's a continuous exercise. And then of course, because we call when they are not men drilling going on now, but in those days when we used to have a lot of drilling, we call campaigns, little drilling campaigns. As you're having drilling campaigns, you're having recruitment campaigns. You know, so it's a very busy one for recruitment people in the industry. The industry recycles professionals a lot, owing to the early retirement and several packages across the industry. So this I must explain because some people are not familiar with it. So very often, oil and gas companies do severance packages, or what you call early retirement. Some of the operators have early retirement at 45, age 45, or 15 years of service, which means that at age 45, you are given the option of going home and taking a package, a very attractive package in some instances or in many instances. And in some other ones, like one of the ones I've worked for, on a periodic basis, they do voluntary severance package. So wherein they say, just, do you want to go? Do you want to stop working? So they will give you ex gratia, and of course, they will consider the gratuity terms to exit people. So essentially, when they do this, then the next window, they start hiring those people back into the system. So what you now find out is that a lot of folks will take this package and then move to another company. Some of them will move outside of the industry, but for the core oil workers, they will remain in the industry. So there's a lot of recycling going on. That's why you go to different companies, ex-Shell, ex-Mobil, ex-Chevron, ex-Adax, ex-this, ex-that. So that's something you should expect, plan for when you work within the oil and gas sector. There is a huge percentage of contract employment, but the terms are not too bad for a decent employment. So you see a lot of contract employed, third-party contractors, direct contractors, etc. in the industry. Again, what I've come to realize is that the industry uses that as a mechanism for managing costs. Because there's a huge payroll cost, the industry or operators have contract employment that they easily can manage when there's an issue. For instance, I remember very well in 2014, when there was the glut, when there was a fall in oil price, when they're all the way down to $20 per barrel. So the first set of people we had to let go were the contract workers of the at the different levels. Indeed, we didn't even allow okay, eventually we did a severance. My former company, we had to do a severance, but that was a package, you know, a package for the full-time employees. But for the contract employees, from 2014, we started cutting down costs from the employee cost, actually. So basically, that is recruitment in oil and gas sector. And I as you would imagine, it's not totally different from what happens in some other sectors of the economy. I mean, but again, because of the unions, we also have some carefulness in the way we do this. So learning and development. So I'm trying to check. Okay. I'm sorry, I was just checking what was in the chat room. So learning and development. Okay. So like there's the oil companies, especially the oil majors, have arguably the highest training budget in this country. Someone can tell me otherwise. It's in millions of dollars. And so they provide training for their employees, like I explained earlier. Typically, oil companies provide local and international training for their employees. Employees certainly appreciate the international training programs more. So when I got into the oil sector, I was told that you would have 2 local trainings and 2 international trainings. But trust me, because I was coming from education, very conservative, from telecoms, where we practically didn't get any training, the one I worked, except for, on the job training, which is training anyway, so it's not controversial. When I got in there, I chose to do not a certification, yes. Yeah, that was when I got my CIPD membership, for instance. So I chose to, and the training was done locally. And if I tell you how much was spent for the trainer to come down to Nigeria and train us, most people didn't like it, but I loved it because today I'm a member of CIPD by the virtue of that opportunity. So I didn't get carried away by, oh, let's go and do a 2-3 day course in London, which I could afford on my own anyway. So, so basically what I'm trying to say is that oil companies do spend a lot of money to train their employees, both locally and internationally. They spend a lot also on conferences. You go to, a lot of oil workers go to Houston almost on an annual basis, and so different conferences across the world. Learning and development is quite well structured in many oil companies, and funding is never a challenge, except when we experience a drastic fall in the price of oil. And we do this often and often. So, but when we do not have a glut, when you don't have drastic fall in the price of crude oil companies provide a lot of training and exposure to their people. And I must say, it's not just classroom training. They provide a lot of viable platforms, connect to a lot of international training platforms for their both core oil workers and support functions. Oil companies support the career development of their employees with education grants, study leave, and full sponsorship of postgraduate degrees and all sorts. I've seen where an operator, sponsored staff to go and do master's degree with full payment of tuition and all sorts, and then the staff was on, I think, half pay or something, and they come back and they're able to join the company. In some instances, I know they even pay 100% your salary, and then they sponsor you to all sorts of places across. But I know this is also done in other sectors of the economy, but it happens a lot in the oil and gas sector. Then organization development, so because this has a lot of dynamics. One is that operators are usually influenced by their corporate HQs to optimize the organization and make the entity as functional as possible. And in my experience, I found that because there are always projects, because maybe there's always acquisition of assets, there's always relinquishing of assets, and so on and so forth, mergers and all that, you find out that the oil companies keep changing their structure. They keep moving people from one place to the other. They keep closing down one arm, aligning another one arm to the other arm. And so there's a lot of organizational development opportunities in the place. There's a lot of work for people who do this. Oil companies have less headroom. So you find out that it's a pyramid. It's like every other organization, but it's tough in the oil and gas sector for people to grow, vertically. What you see is that, of course, on an annual basis, there are increases in pay, improved benefits, compensation and benefits, and so on and so forth. So, but this, in my experience, all of these are usually not enough. People want to aspire to become managers, to become directors, to become etc. But there are very limited opportunities in oil and gas companies. The best way to move up in this sector is to move to the next company. But of course, people do move up. Don't get me wrong. People move up in the organization, have moved up in the organization, in an organization, but a lot of times these opportunities are not there because, and I think I stated this somewhere in this presentation, that what the scenario you find is that there are so many specialized skills required, particularly in the core technical production operations, the subsurface areas. And because of this expertise that are required, because of the investment that has gone into making that person the fit for purpose person, it's difficult for the organization to let them go. So many times you find a situation whereby the people reach retirement age and they still come in as contractors, or people even take packages and they still come in as contractors. And if somebody is doing that job, you may not be able to move up. That's the dynamics. Employees often receive pay reviews and commission more than they get promotion, or owing to limited opportunities. Like I said, there are opportunities for cross-posting within and outside Africa. So for the very big ones, the multinational ones, there are opportunities for cross-posting. So basically, you go to other clients in Africa, other countries in Africa, and then outside of the continent. Succession planning. My experience is that there's poor succession planning. This for me is a minus, and of course, I've explained why. Because again, the company feels that they do probably feel that they're not comfortable with the next person. So, and then the person up there who's got the skill is probably not transferring the skill. I'm not making allegations, but these are things I've experienced. And sometimes the next person doesn't have the aptitude to, catch up with the person that is ahead of him. And I'm talking of core oil and gas areas, maybe not necessarily human resources, but these are issues that human resources folks have to deal with in operating companies. Of course, performance management is crucial, as because of bonuses. The merit system in the oil and gas sector makes performance management a very critical HR function, because performance is not just about you are going to be fired or you are going to be retained. Performance also determines what your total remuneration for the year will be. What I mean is, it determines the bonuses you will get, it determines the merit increases you will get, and so on and so forth. It also determines, in the final analysis, what you will get when there's a severance package. So it's a trouble area that HR folks would have to deal with. So you have to, if you're going to the oil and gas sector as an HR practitioner, you have to be very clear-headed on the kind of your approach to performance management. You have to be clear-headed, and you may not be able to satisfy everybody, but you have to do what will satisfy the majority. They adopt useful tools, but ranking may become very controversial, especially when they adopt first ranking. So I know first ranking is very controversial, and most of us are throwing it through the window, but some folks in the oil and gas sector still force first ranking down the throats of employees. And of course, it boomerangs a lot of times, but it is what it is. So we need to begin to, when you go into the sector, you must be able to adopt the best performance management framework. KPIs are tied to oil production and price of barrel of oil. This can really be a huge problem when the price of oil tumbles. So it is what it is. If you say you're going to produce 100,000 barrels of oil, and you end up producing 80,000 barrels of, 80,000 is good, you end up producing 20,000 barrels of oil. Of course, what it is, no matter what you have done, the company has not done well. Just like it should happen in FMCG with sales and all of those things. So reward, I know this is an interesting area. It is fair to say workers in the oil sector are well paid compared to the other sectors of the economy. I will confess, I haven't been around myself. It's important not to betray how you feel when you see a typical upstream oil and gas payroll. The oil workers will be watching your body language. So if you are moving from any other industry, and this I've seen a lot. It happened to me in a way, but I think mine wasn't that profound. But I've seen people it affected profoundly, who moved from other sectors of the economy, and when they see the payroll of the oil and gas employee, they shout that what else are they looking for? Now, when oil and gas workers see you do this, they will make sure you go down. They will make sure, particularly the unions. There are myriads. So you pretend, when you see the payroll, pretend as if you are not seeing it. Which typically is what a payroll person, well, not a payroll person, an HR person should do. When you see payroll, you pretend as if you have not seen it. There are myriads of benefits, including performance bonuses, first oil bonus, production bonuses, merit bonuses, 13th month, 14th month in some instances, unlimited healthcare, free for service, paid vacation for senior people, monetized car grant, etc. I believe other sectors also enjoy this, but I just need to be full disclosure to say these are things that happen in the sector. Again, the reason why I highlighted this benefits is so that when you find yourself in the sector, so you say, yeah, this was what Anita was talking about, and then you're not shocked. Because the moment you basically express shock, then the news goes around the organization, then you become you'll be vilified, because they will say this person that doesn't have industry experience. They often have very attractive retention plans, and they have a history of very laudable benefit packages. The last company, not the last, the one I worked before the last, really had a lot of retention plans. So I could see, because I'd worked in how many sectors? I'd worked in about 4 companies before I got there, about 2-3 sectors of the Nigerian economy. So I could see clearly, and in HR functions, I could see clearly how beautiful these retention plans were. Because again, it manifested in the fact that even when I got, until I was severed, even when I got very attractive packages, I didn't leave. I could not leave, because I knew that there were things that were waiting for me at the end of the tunnel. So HR business partnering and HR projects. There are lots of opportunities, HR business partnering opportunities in the oil and gas sector. It's beautiful experience, actually. It's beautiful experience working with the drilling people, working with the production operations people, working with the HSC people, and so on and so forth. Government relations people. Is beautiful experience working with them. Business partners would usually need to pay attention to the following critical areas. Retention of top talent. You would have to deal with this, because I know for sure that the core oil workers, and I will tell you a story without, I'll make it as, how do I put it now? I'll protect the confidentiality as much as possible. I had a friend in the sector, wasn't very good. He was a star in one of the areas, the surface areas. And the day he was a top talent that would have become maybe the GM or a director in that function. But the day he discovered that someone in a support function who was lesser in cadre to him, he pay inequality, was earning as much as he was earning. That day, he made up his mind to leave the organization, and he left within 1 year. And I tell the story that the next year, so he left with a severance, actually, and everybody begged him, but he refused. The next year, he then became a consultant in that specialization, and he earned about 6 times his income in the operating company. So top talent because people who work in the sector, particularly Thank you. So essentially, I told that story for us to know how basically talents move, and how we must protect talent, we must retain talent by all the different. So when you get into the sector, I'm assuming some of us are in the sector, what you realize, some of those packages are to retain people. They are not just there for nothing. They are to retain people in the company so that the company can be able to continue on the stead of operational excellence. Culture shaping and management. Again, you are going to have to hold the culture of the entity, of the operating company, because you are going to be having people from diverse places, and you are going to be having people who have everything up on the shoulder, because probably they are top talent, they just want to act the way they want to act. So there must be regular culture shaping and culture management programs and in place for people to ensure that people are doing what they're supposed to be doing, heading the same direction with the organization. Now, of course, One of the biggest issues that I've seen in the sector is internal pay equity. Because of the unions, there are a lot of things that are going on from the compensation and from the payroll perspective. And some of those things and what we call legacy issues, there are some of that legacy issues that have brought about very, very poor internal equity in this, and it's a major problem. And like I said, I gave the story of my friend who had to leave because he found out that somebody that was 2 steps behind him in a support function was earning as much as he was earning. And he felt that, why? What's his contribution to business? So we must deal with that or be prepared to deal with that as people who are working in the oil and gas sector. Employee engagement. So there will be a lot of employee engagement because of the unions again. 1, because of the unions. 2, because of the attraction in competitors. So somebody just comes in, you are doing maybe 100,000 barrels of oil. Somebody just comes in and is doing 15,000 barrels of oil and it needs your top talent. So it's ready to give them ×4. It's even ready to give them a contract employment. You know, some of us are familiar with the structure. Some of them do 28, 28, 1 month at home, 1 month at work. And the person is ready to have this person come and work for 6 months, and you give the person 4 years salary of what you would have given the person. Because dynamics are different. The cost of the bigger operator is different from the cost of the smaller operator, etc. So there must be a lot of multi-layered employee engagement to ensure that you are able to keep your top talent. I keep talking about top talent because those are the people that I think will be critical to you. And then, of course, your employee value proposition. You must be clear-headed in the employee value proposition that you are going to run in an operating company. Okay, so how to get, so I believe that we are getting to the end of the conversation. So how do I get, for those who are interested in, not everybody is interested. Some people are enjoying what they are doing. But some people, I would imagine that if I end this conversation without talking about how to get a job in the oil and gas sector, I wouldn't have done justice to the job. So like I mentioned earlier, there are vacancies in the public space. Please apply as many times as you can. Expand your professional network. How do I expand my professional network? Ensure that you go to professional conferences. So for instance, Society for Petroleum Engineers do both the chapters and the national, they do different conferences in different parts of the country where you have the opportunity, interact with them, go to a desk and have conversation. I've seen people got jobs through that. Show interest in consulting for oil and gas companies. I got my route into the oil and gas sector through a consulting activity where I wasn't planning to get the job. I was just doing my job and trying to do it diligently, and I was identified. And then, of course, start from somewhere. One of the things that happens is that a lot of times we don't want to start from somewhere. Let's start from somewhere. And you find out, I will tell my story. When I joined the consulting firm through which I got the opportunity in my first upstream company, the upstream company had actually advertised for the role I eventually got, but I did not apply. But when I got into the consulting company, and I was supposed to be doing learning and development, but as I resumed, they told me that they have an engagement with this oil company, and they want me to lead it, reporting into a partner. And it was a recruitment engagement, but I was a learning and development person. Some folks would have said, no, I'm sorry, I'm here to do learning and development. I know people would have said that, but I jumped onto it and I gave it my best shot. And in a short while, I launched into the sector. So that talking about starting from somewhere, I didn't have an idea I was going to move. So this interests me more. That is, how do I get, because I know we have a little consultants on this platform. How do I get the consulting opportunities in the oil and gas? There's massive consulting opportunities in the oil and gas sector. I said massive training opportunities, especially within the specialized fields, production, operation, and optimization, technical and subsurface areas such as reservoir management, petroleum engineering, petrophysics, and geology. Not much of drilling is going on right now. Seek to partner foreign firms and pay attention to training location. So, as consultants, the biggest job of a managing partner is networking. So, for you to be able to hit into the oil and gas training budget, the massive oil and gas training budget that I talked about, you need to have foreign partnerships, because many of the core oil and gas technical trainings will happen abroad. Not that they have to happen abroad, they typically will happen abroad. So you can partner with foreign organizations and then see how you now use your local partnership to get some training jobs. Core organization development such as org structure, competency management, succession planning, mentorship, executive coaching, industrial relations are also very viable consulting opportunities in the oil and gas sector. If you network right, you go to where oil workers are going to. Some of these opportunities are just will be at your fingertip, because when you meet somebody who is willing to share information, they will share information with you. They will share information with you, and then next you get a job. Of course, there's a lot of third-party manpower administration, a lot of it going on. They outsource a lot of manpower, so you can actually get managed manpower for them. Indeed, what we have realized is that there are so many incompetent manpower firms. You know, basically, they just find a way to get these jobs, and then they are doing a poor job. So if you can do a good job, why not? Why don't you connect, network in the right places? Of course, there's payroll administration. You can also administer payroll for companies in the sector. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much. I hope I've been able to do a little justice, and I open the floor. I'll go back to Dr. Adeosun so that we can move to the next step.
Thank you so much. Thank you, thank you, thank you. This has been very well delivered, well articulated. Nuggets, insights, in quote, secrets. You also said some things in parables, you know, some things that hopefully some people will catch it. Ladies and gentlemen, I will mention one of the things he said in parable. You know me, I'm not in this sector, and I'm just a teacher, you know, like you all know. So teachers, we are mounted like that. You mentioned something in passing, that there is a headroom, even though there is headroom everywhere. So which means that if you go to that sector, you should not expect promotion every year, every 2 years. These are part of the peculiarities. So you may be in a startup where every 6 months, every 1 year, when you are changing, you must change with the right orientation or reorientation. Again, don't look at a sector in the context of good or bad. Look at it with reality, and then know, is this what is good for you? Is this what you want to enter? It also tells you something, that don't always, so to speak, envy certain people in certain circumstances. They may have a lot of money, but they may be stagnated, in quote. And depending on your personality, if you are the one that tries to get growth with positions, change of grade, you may not necessarily always find it in certain sectors. Thank you so much. Ladies and gentlemen, as always, we would like to take your questions. We would like to take your contributions. Maybe you are in the oil and gas currently, or you've been in the oil and gas. You also want to chime in, want to add 1 or 2 things, you know, to what our colleague has, you know, shared with us so graciously and generously tonight. We'll be taking it. But please do me a favor. Don't mention any organization, please, and don't mention any name or individual as you do this. You understand? We don't want to put nobody in no trouble. We are good people here, and we are here to help each other. I already see 3 hands up, and I'll call you in order of how I saw your hands up. In case your hand came up faster, you can put the blame on me. Or put me in oil and gas so that I won't do that again. We'll start with Tunde Malik. Tunde, please. My Oga Tunde, you have the floor. Then we'll go to Austin, then we'll take Ali in that order.
Okay, thank you, Doc. Thank you. Please, can you hear me?
Okay, loud and clear. Go ahead.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Newton. Thank you very much for giving us that insight. I am equally a fellow CIPD like you from University of Leeds. I'm very happy to hear from you. I just want to add to what you have your paper, your presentation. I'm equally an industry person. Like you said, we should not mention name, but I would like to just shed light on one or two things that you said during the course of presentation. I joined you at the beginning, at the point I left, and I joined again to see my prayer, and I'm just back. I'm from Abuja now. I usually join from the UK. But the first thing is that I don't know if you mentioned something about the corporate, the CPPG, the corporate procedure guide and policy of the oil and gas. Because it is neat that you have all those things that you mentioned, especially that has to do with pay, that has to do with promotion, and that has to do with rewards. So it is what we use in the oil and gas sector. It is called CPPG. That is Corporate Policy Guide and Corporate Policy Guide and Procedure. It is what we use in CPPG. And every oil and gas, we have two sections. We have the public, which we have the public sector and the private sector. In the public sector, which are mostly production, where we have the likes of Mobil, Chevron, and co. And in the public sector, we have NNPC and co. and co. Let me don't mention them. So, but we use almost similar salary structure. But you see, where you mention equity, internal equity in terms of what you pay, this is what happened. You all earn the same salary, but you cannot earn the same allowances. There are certain allowances that are activated for some people who are in other SUB. I'll give you an example. In NNPC now, we have what they call PPMC. They are marketers. You are there now, probably you are in a particular department, and you are doing ABC, where part of your performance and appraisal is that when you do this, when you can meet up with this is what you earn. And you find out that your senior, who is a manager or a senior manager, like you said, you don't get promotion like other company or other sector in oil and gas, but you earn higher, heavily higher. In fact, in oil and gas, you don't say your salary is personal to you. You don't even share your pay slip. Your pay slip is sent to your email, and it is your property. Nobody shares because it is part of the lay down principle. You don't share a pay slip. So you find out that you are earning more than your senior. You can depend. Even some people who are in Nupeng, I rose to be the secretary of Pengasin of my branch. So I know what I'm saying. So, and most of these things are negotiated during our, what you mentioned, JCC. JCC is Joint Consultative Council of the oil and gas people, where you negotiate salary, where you negotiate reward, where you negotiate retention, everything. And it becomes law when you take it to the council. So that is one of the things. That's why you find out that some people is earning higher and they are senior, or they're earning higher than they are senior. Not that it is it is because of where the unit that you belong. The number two, you mentioned about, yes, it is all of that I've seen that they train people. They give you everything you need because they want something good or something positive or productive too in return. For instance, I have shared this with Mr. Dr. Adeyemi before. I'm not an HR person. I work with ES, some of these top people, but I've been deployed now to HR. That's one of the things I was sent to the University of Leeds with full pay. And after that, back to Nigeria with full pay, continue with my job. I'm transiting. So in oil and gas, truly, you have quality support in terms of training, in terms of capacity building, and in terms of every other support that can make you to perform very well. Of course, when it comes to staying or leaving, you have to think about it very well. You don't take action because of emotion. Because like you said, during your course of presentation, there are a lot of things that is there for you to gain when you are exiting the system. So a lot of people prefer to stay, even when they are not getting promotion. Like people in Nupeng, you see that you find out that this man is old now, he should have exited, but he's still in the system because of what he's going to take home. You know your take home 6 months, 3 months before you exit the system, and you know that, this is big. So the retention, they retain talents by giving good reward and support to start. So I'm just saying this to just say that all what Mr. Eniton has submitted in terms of what is going on in oil and gas are true, and it's a good place to work, but also you have to be very, very careful too, because it's also very delicate. This is my 18 to 20 years in the oil and gas. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Anytime you want to react to that
Thank you very much. I think I'm okay. He's just made additions to what I've said, so it's fine. Thank you. Let's go.
Thank you so much, Mr. Tunde Malik Agbalaya. We'll go on to Austin. Austin, you have the floor, please. Okay, I think we move on to Aliyu and come back to Austin. Ali, you have the floor.
Yeah, good evening, everyone, and thank you so much, Doc, for this opportunity once again. Yeah, we, in the course of the presentation, we made mention of the severe package that, once in a while, the organization will call on some people that, okay, they offer them a package, I ask them if they would like to leave and all of that. Fine, I also know one or two other organization that does that. So I just want to know what actually informed this, and will it be done? Does it have anything to do with performance, or what informed that they will not make you to do that, or does it have something to do with age or whatever it is? So I want to know what informed that decision, that they will not pay you heavily, asking you if you want to leave or all of that, and they pay you heavily. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Aliu. So a lot of multiple factors, I will not be able to exhaust it. I'll just give you a few. Most of the time, they just want to shed load. They just feel that, like I said, the payroll is heavy. So they just want to shed some load so that the organization can probably outsource some of these roles, or they no longer need those roles. Sometimes also a few of the people, because it's a program, it's not just, they will not just pick 2-3 people and say, we are severing you. No, they don't do that. It's a package. And most of the time it's called voluntary severance package. Sometimes, yes, so some people are targeted. So that's why I said multiple factors. So some people are targeted, they'll be advised. But in a lot of instances, because of the unions, you can't force anybody to take it, so long as you say it is voluntary. You understand? So there are multiple factors. When there was oil glut in 2014, 2015, some organizations did, and some other IOCs, some operators have it as a policy to say, if you are 45 years old or you have spent 15 years in the organization, you can apply. But it doesn't mean that, because if it is voluntary, it is not everybody that applies that they give it to. So technically you can say it's people they don't want. But you also find a situation whereby sometimes some oil companies are shutting down. Like one of the ones I worked with recently, they were shutting down and they severed everybody. So either you are a star performer or not, they just paid you a severance and say you can go. So in multiple factors, we can discuss the factors for the next 24 hours. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much. Austin is back now. Austin, final boarding announcement. You have the floor.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Doc. Thank you. Apologies, my device was acting up. Okay, thank you, Mr. Niton Awojobi. Thank you so much. Quite insightful session. I have indeed enjoyed myself. Quite insightful. Now, just two. One is comment, and the other one would be question for further clarification. Now, looking at the various areas of the HRO function that you talked about, everything you mentioned there are just exactly the way it is. And thank you also for the maturity you exercised, because the truth is that most of us cannot manage information. Thank you for that maturity. Now, the area I want to draw our attention to is the different segment in the oil and gas industry. Within that industry, we have the IOCs, we have the operators, and we have the servicing. Now, most of the areas that you discussed about, quite detailed, most of them are tinting towards the IOCs and the operators. I just want to make this clarification so that most of our colleagues here in the room will not have an opportunity and they begin to overprice themselves. So we need to get that clarification very clear, very clear. So it depends on these categories, any of these categories I fall into that will determine your expectations. If it is IOCs, yes, everything that Anita has taught us here, they are there. For the operators, they are also there. But for servicing, please do not expect as much as this. Having said that, the second one will come in form of questions so that you throw a little light on that. And that is in the area of expatriate recruitment, in the area of expatriate documentation and payroll management. The recruitment of expatriate is quite different. I didn't hear much about that. In the area of their documentation is also very important. I just needed to touch more on that. And then payroll management of expatriate is also different from our conventional payroll management here. I appreciate if you can just throw a little bit of light into these three areas so that we can learn more. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Austin. So firstly, thank you for calling my attention to that. My experience has been with IOC and operators. So maybe but I have I've had a lot of interactions with the service companies because I've managed body shop, manpower agencies, and I've managed operators, servicing companies. So it's true that servicing companies are not in this breed. However, they're also not poor. They're also fairly okay compared to other industry or other sectors of the economy. That's number one. So yes, it's true. I didn't talk about expatriate recruitment. So when I mentioned, so I didn't elaborate because of our time. When I mentioned that we use global search firms to get people, that also includes expatriates. We get expatriates through global search firms. The ones I've worked for, we typically will get expatriates posted from our HQ, from our corporate head office or regional office. So, and then of course, the whole processes of expatriate, the SEPAC, the immigration, of course, you have to have quota. You understand? There are also in the quota, you have the investor positions, you have the quota positions, you have all of those succession planning, all of those documentations that you have to do. I believe most HR people are familiar with expatriates. That can be a session on its own where you go through what do you do when you have hired an expatriate? How do you bring an expatriate into the country? How do you manage expatriate payroll where expatriate is paid in country or where expatriate is paid from your corporate head office or your regional office? Because there are two different things. Sometimes the money is not coming, the man is working here, but his salaries are paid from somewhere else. All he gets here is stipend for survival. But in some other instances, you also find out that the man is paid from here. Typically when you outsource. So for instance, what you see in a lot of cases, particularly with the core oil workers, the technical and the subsurface people, the engineering people, is you find that they are placed with a manpower agency. So the manpower agency would administer payments of their salaries. But you, as the HR in the IOC or the operator, would now ensure that there's 100% compliance, on payee and of course returns to the Ministry of Internal Affairs and so on and so forth. So that's a very big area that I want us to, but I acknowledge that, correct, the path to recruiting expatriates is not as straightforward as when you recruit locals, but it's easier when your organization has a regional or a corporate head office outside of the country. All you just need to do is to now align with the immigration services, the internal home office or internal affairs ministry, and so on and so forth. Thank you. So I also admit, like I said, that indeed, the way I want to say it is this. It's exciting to start. That's why I say start small. So when you work for an EPC company, service contractor in the oil and gas sector, then the potential to get a job in an IOC or an operator increases. So all you just need to do is to make enough friends and then to negotiate your way vertically. So I hope I've been able to address some of Austin's points. Thank you.
Yes, you did. Thank you. Thank you very much,
Thank
sir.
you.
Appreciate
Thank you.
this.
Yes.
Thank you so much. Incidentally, Anita, I've worked in 2 oil and gas firms. One is oil servicing, and the
I know.
other is downstream.
I know.
I didn't make it to the big league, but that's
And
why
you
I'm
didn't
your
want
friend.
to. You didn't want to.
At least, as my friend, what I didn't get, you got. So I've gotten it indirectly.
You didn't want to.
There's only one more question I think I would like you to address, even though that was like the concluding part or portion of your presentation, but someone here is still asking again. So, and she's saying that she loves the oil and gas sector and she would like to enter. So I would like to assume that this person is like entry level. Okay, so maybe on a slightly more granular level, you may want to explain or shed insight into how someone can enter the oil and gas field from maybe straight from the university. Let's just make it that granular as much as
Okay.
possible. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So good thing is that the opportunities are coming up again. And what is happening in the sector now, particularly among the operators, is that a lot of the IOCs, the big ones, are giving up their, people call it marginal fields, but sometimes I don't like that word marginal because some of them are doing big, very big production or big barrels. So some of these local indigenous oil companies, IOCs, I call them also, are also beginning to open up opportunities for graduate employment or graduate training or management training opportunities. So be on the lookout. And like I said, also open up yourself to anything, conversations going around in oil and gas. For instance, one area in oil and gas that I think is an immense opportunity for people is health, safety, and environment. That area is, for me, is about the biggest employer of people who are not called oil and gas people right now. If you hear of any oil and gas conference anywhere, go pay for it and attend. If you see any advert saying that they are employing people in oil and gas, graduate trainees, or any area that applies to you, go ahead and appear and apply. Be self-confident. If you have anybody that works for an oil and gas company, send your CV to them, and so on and so forth. If you go on LinkedIn and you see people who are recruiters in oil and gas organizations, send your CV to them, package yourselves. And of course, the biggest thing you can do, that's my experience, the biggest you can do to yourself to get a job in oil and gas is to be prepared. And also to be a professional. Wherever you work, make sure that people know you, that you know the job. Yeah, if you don't know the job yet, let people know that you are aspirational. Let people know that you are hardworking. Let people know that you can be trusted, and so on and so forth. And like I said, network, network, network. You will get it if you want it. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Anita. I have one more question, but before that, one more question. I just want to add quickly here that Anita alluded to it, but let me be a little more explicit. One of the ways to enter oil and gas is to get specific and specialized training. And let me say this, one of my friends, very good friend, went to the university together. He read sociology, and I need to pay attention to this short but insightful story. He read sociology. Immediately after school, due to networking and relationships, he got to know about some trainings. You know, these trainings were underwater, heights, Bossiet, Duet. He read sociology. He didn't do engineering. He didn't do geophysics. And some of these exams, there are cost implications. And you also need to be courageous, you know, scaffolding, going on water and the likes. My friend threw himself into it. Today, if you call him or message him, it's either in Kuwait, Oman, or Saudi, in one obscure country or the other. but swimming in money. Of course, almost all this time he has been doing contract jobs, 1 year projects, 2 year projects, 6 months projects. So he's not even looking for any permanent. He's on one oil rig. So he will do 2 months onshore, 2 months offshore, those kind of things. So you may need to. And I know this is an HR training. The only way may not be as an HR professional. That's a way, but please, you need to be broad-minded. The last question, and this is my question anytime, but it's for everybody, because some of these things don't happen every day. I know we are pressed for time. In the last few days, there was a chopper crash. I can't remember the exact location, but maybe I assume it's in the south or something. From an HR perspective, how do you think HR will, now this is generic now, not specific to the chopper crash. What do you think HR will do in managing that process? That disaster, the family, at least based on your knowledge, what are the things you think HR will do to manage it? Because from time to time, HR people have to manage one form of disaster or tragedy, even though we don't pray for any. But this just crystallized just 2 or 3 days ago. And that will be our final question, my brother.
Thank you.
Sorry for putting you on this spot.
Thank you very much. I will answer that question. But just before that, Dr. Oluyemi, let me also add to what you just said. So I know a woman, and that's why I kept emphasizing networking, looking for opportunities, capitalizing. So I know someone who was doing a PhD, and she made sure she had something to do with the oil and gas industry in her PhD, and then she went to collect her data from one of the IOCs, and today, like 15 years after, she's a top shot in the industry because of that internship experience. So there are many opportunities, like Dr. Oluyemi said, through which we can get into the industry. So look for any opportunity. If you are really interested, look for opportunities, do your master's project and do something in the area of oil and gas, and then go look for a place to collect your samples, etc., etc. So that story that Dr. Oluyemi, that story you mentioned concerns me personally. Yeah, so it's a situation I've actually reviewed thoroughly. And so I would say that as HR people, we must ensure that we have the books tidied up. So typically, the Employee Compensation Act, a lot of organizations shy away from it. A lot of organizations don't pay premium. As HR practitioners, we must always know that insurance is insurance, and that a day will come in the life of an organization. It may not be when you are there. You might have exited the organization that you would have to pay compensation. Number two, a lot of organizations don't have beneficiaries. They don't. Employees don't complete beneficiaries form. A lot of complications happen when people are demised. I've managed some of these crises in my time in different sectors. So we must ensure that people complete the necessary documentation so that we know who their beneficiaries are. Thirdly, we must ensure, apart from the life insurance, we must ensure the NSITF, such as the ECA, we must ensure that pensions are paid, because they'll be in the life of an organization that exists in perpetuity. As HR professionals, we must know a day of reckoning will come when people will know if we are doing our jobs or not. We must also escalate where you have some employees who refuse to fill the necessary forms, particularly the beneficiaries form. Then, of course, we must also plan programs for people to plan for what happens in case of an accident. Importantly, in HR business partnering, we must, as HR people, contribute to conversations that pertains to the welfare of employees. In terms of how do people get to do the job? You know, I used to have an MD in one of the organizations I've worked for in the sector who said that these people who work in the fields are operating at the sharpest edge of this business, of the business. Usually it's easy for me to say I work for an oil company or, you know, an upstream company, but it is important that as I do my job, I drive 4 minutes, 5 minutes to my office. It is important I know that some people are going onto the Atlantic. It's important I know that some people are in areas where there can be a community unrest that will consume all of them. So if I understand that, every and any decision that are being taken pertaining to workforce and tools of work and ambience, transportation, it's important that I contribute to conversations in such a way and manner that employees are protected. The work of a strategic HR professional is very much, it's not transactional. You know, that's why I often get bothered when top level HR people are bogged down by transactional issues. We should be dealing with strategic issues, thinking ahead, thorough thinking, deep thinking around everything that has to do with the employee, everything, you know. So those are my thoughts around what happened. And of course, also, again, these folks, within 10 hours, their names were in the public space already. The question is that, was there a manifest? Of course, there was a manifest. What did the HR of that service organization, what did the HR do to ensure that the families of these people get to know first before other people in the public? So those are my immediate thoughts. Important thought, the most important thought I have around this is that HR must find a space on the table to be able to have conversations on everything that has to do with the welfare of all employees, including third-party contractors, because when situations like this happen, and it happens to a third-party contractor, as I'm aware in this case, the name of the company will be in the press, because nobody will remember the third-party contractor because they are working for you. But a lot of times we find HR people are the same people that are saying it's not our employee. I know he's not your employee. I know you should not be involved in daily management of this personnel, but at the back end, ensure that everything is being done right, because the reputation of your brand will be in the public space. Thank you.
So, Awojobi, this has been truly a masterclass. It has been a session with an industry veteran, a man of letters, man of many colors. I'm excited that we are eventually able to bring this first conversation to fruition, hopefully the first of many to come. Ladies and gentlemen, so that Enito Awojobi will know how much we value his time, his expertise. I'd like us to unmute and express our gratitude to him tonight. Just like I mentioned, he had to drive to work so that he can focus. It shows the importance premium he has placed on us as his audience, and he wants to give us his full attention. Ladies and gentlemen, if you are able to talk, you may want to say thank you. You can unmute and say something.
Thank you very much, Mr.
Thank
Enipo.
you so much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Mr. Enipo. Thank you so much. God bless you richly. Thank you so much.
We really
You are so
appreciate it.
grateful.
You have really
Thank
done
you,
well.
sir.
You have opened another frontier. Thank you.
Thank you. All my pleasure. All my pleasure. And thank you, Dr. Adeosun, for this opportunity. I do not take it for granted.
Thank you.